Hey everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast and welcome to Print to Pitch. This is where we have a look at all things 3D printed for Blood Bowl. We're looking at teams, we're looking at star players, we're looking at accessories, and occasionally we'll look at stuff that has nothing to do with Blood Bowl that works beautifully in Blood Bowl. However, today we are looking at this month's Patreon release from Torchlight Miniatures. I have loved basically everything these guys have done, and they continue to release an entire team a month, which is phenomenal. Now, they've gone all in this month in crazy murder blood fest. It's Khorne. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the STLs, we're going to have a look at what comes in the package, and then we've got a couple of printed ones that we're going to have a look at. Okay, so let's have a look at them on My Mini Factory. Now, I follow them as a tribe. I'm in their tribe, which is their version of Patreon on My Mini Factory. So this is like £7 or something for the entire team. I believe they sell the team separately in months after, but I mean, you're not looking at a huge investment here. I would buy into the tribe because £7-8 for a team like this is it makes me happy. Okay, so this month we've got the Maximum Carnage team. We've got a Bloodspawn. We've got 4 individual corn dogs. Corn gores is what they're really called. You've got 4 Seekers now. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got a dude over there. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Marauders. But they've got helmeted Marauders and unhelmeted Marauders. So realistically, it's kind of 14 Marauders. And then you can kind of switch them as well. So it's more like 30 Marauders. So there's 2 different types of Bloodspawn as well. They've gone to town with these sculpts, which really gives you flexibility to choose from. So these are the Bloodseeker sculpts. Now, Torchlight have this style, which is a little bit exaggerated, a little bit cartoony, and a little bit awesome. So you can see from a proportions point of view, this team is very much in the line of their Dwarf team or their Amazon/Norse team, where they kind of got that triangle vibe. Okay, slightly bigger feet versus a slightly smaller head. It's barely noticeable, and trust me, if you print them out on a big scale, it doesn't matter at all. So we've got a couple of really good sculpts for Bloodseekers, and then you've got the Corn Dogs too. Now, the Games Workshop Corn Gores are quite cartoony. Torchlight has that slightly exaggerated style, and it follows through into this one. I love that they got the mane there as well. Now, you can choose which ones you like, which ones you don't like. The Bloodspawn. I love the Bloodspawn. It's got that Spawn Resident Evil vibe to it, and it is a pretty chunky boy as well. We'll have a look at the printed models in a second, but we've got a Bloodspawn, and there is a couple of different sculpts versions for that. So we've got all these dudes, and then we should have some alternate sculpts without helmets too. Here we go. So you can pick and choose. I will be using these guys in a Chaos Pact team as my lineman, and again, I can chuck in some helmetless ones. The fact that we've got a dude here with glasses and an afro and rollerblades is amazing. It's completely unnecessary, but amazing, and it's just one of the great things you get with these kind of sets. And here's the other Bloodseekers. These are my favourite sculpts. They're the kind of hoplite helmet is so cool. So anyway, we've got access to all the STLs. We've got the pre-supported ones and the non-supported ones. So I think we have a look at the STLs. Okay, so first STLs we're going to have a look at are the 2 different Bloodspawn sculpts. They're very similar, okay? There's nothing completely different about them. You don't have 2 different poses to choose from, but you do have 2 different kind of accentuated bits. So this guy's got all the Khorne gear, like you've got the skull, you've got the armor plating, you've got that freaky tongue that just looks like definitely a Resident Evil vibe. But this guy here has got no loincloth and just really ups it from a creepy level. Now, I'm a big fan of these Bloodspawns, and the creepy face is really well done. It's cool that they've gone with a different design. It's not just a Minotaur, it's not just a big old ogre. This has really got that Spawn element to it, and it gives you a great alt sculpt if you want to be running a Bloodspawn. Okay, these are my favourite sculpts in this kit, and you might have already seen my giant version. So I love these guys. These are the Blood Seekers. So these are your Strength 4 Frenzy pieces. This is really the reason to run this team, because you get 4 just horrifically damaging players. Great sculpts, great armor. I mean, Torchlight do a really good job of adding texture to their stuff. So their armor always looks like beaten brass. They've always got... It's the kind of sculpting that works really well for my painting style, because with a bit of a dry brush, with a bit of agrax, the detail there adds a nice bit of like texture. It works really well. It kind of brings out the elements of the sculpting. Now, don't get me wrong, they've done a great job here with every bit else. You've got some nice details. You've got the elf head, you've got the muscles, you've got the excellent work there on the faces. It's excellent. Now we've got 4 different Bloodseekers, which is the guy I did this one here. This guy, I scaled him up to 300% to make my giant, and it worked beautifully. And this one I can't scale up because unless there's a giant elf, and that would be terrifying. But this guy is beautifully set to be a giant as well. So I'm looking at a pretty great team of giants here. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the linemen now as well. We've got a couple with helmets and a couple without. So they're excellent, right? They do exactly what you expect them to do. Now, the proportions for the linemen are actually a little bit better than I think the Seekers. Their bodies are a little bit smaller, which kind of makes the head a bit bigger. I love the helmet style. So I'm a big fan of the helmeted ones. Those are the ones I'm going to be using for my pack team. And the fact we've got the Chaos Star on that dude's head is excellent. So I'm a big fan of this. Now, there's a couple of poses that have been copied. So this guy here is the same as the Bloodseeker, just without armor. Instead, he's just Khorne ripped, which is kind of a thing for these guys, but I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. When you buy a Games Workshop team, you normally end up with 4 blitzers looking exactly the same. So if one of my linemen has a similar stance to one of my Bloodseekers, I'm not that fussed. Now, all of these models do come pre-supported, so let's have a quick look at the pre-supports and then we'll have a look at the prints. Okay, so Torchlight pre-supports are normally really, really good. You can see they do them vertically. Now, I haven't had any rings appear on my models, I don't think, so it's not caused me any issues. The only thing I will caution about these pre-supports is watch the flap on the right-hand side of the helmet here. I don't know if that support was strong enough. Basically, it's missing on a few of the players that I've printed out. The helmet has just kind of come away, so I think that support might be a little vulnerable. So do be careful. It might be my lift speed. I don't know. The rest of the models, though, come out perfectly. The sculpts are great, and the pre-support means you don't have to worry. If you're going to be scaling them up or scaling them down, do be careful. You shouldn't be scaling this team down. You might scale them up a bit, and I can tell you from experience, with the exception of that helmet piece, they take 105, 110% with no issues at all. Okay, so on to the 3D prints. These are all printed at, well, these ones are printed at 100% scale. Oh dear. On my Mars 3 Pro. Mars 3 Pro? Mars 2 Pro. Oh, if only I had the Mars 3. Okay, so Mars 2 Pro, 100%, normal settings, and these are the pre-supported files. So, we've seen the sculpts, we know how good the sculpts are. Yeah, the print came out really, really nicely. Although, there is one trending thing that you've got to be careful of with these models, and it is the right-hand side kind of cheek plate of the helmet. For some reason, on the pre-supported editions, and even when I supported the giant version, it's got a bit squiffy, so definitely one to watch. So when you're printing, just be careful, maybe just check it's been supported enough. But, I mean, you get the full sense of Khorne, you get the full sense of chaos here, and it's absolutely awesome. So we'll have a look at this. So this is one of the Bloodseekers, and I've got the Khorne team that Rick, our friend Rick, has painted that we used for our 7 stream. So I figured that would be a really good way to judge the size comparison. Do we have a more standing up guy? I think we do. Here we go. So at 100% scale, the Torchlight Khorne guy is a little on the small side, I would say. So as you line them up, you can see that actually the proportions, the feet are slightly bigger. The problem is you need to scale it up maybe 105%, 110% just to make him a really chunky boy. Actually, that's a nothing thing when you are 3D printing. So a little bit on the small side to be used as a strength 4 Bloodseeker. Let's grab my trusty strength 3 piece, you can see that they've actually got a reasonable size bunce on a strength 3 player there. So this is the nobility thrower. This is Fitzmagic himself. Yeah, so they need a little bit of bulk up to compare to the Khorne Bloodseekers. But let's have a look at the Marauders. Okay, so this is a 100% scale Marauder. And let me see if we can steal one of Rick's again. There we go. So Marauder versus Marauder. Actually, these guys, they don't... Yeah, they line up pretty nicely, actually. 100% scale, they feel a little slighter because the way the Torchlight proportions work is they kind of got bigger legs than they have heads. It's just the kind of style that they sculpt. I love it. It works beautifully on the goblins. These guys, they've got slightly bigger feet than the heads, so even though the bottom looks all right, the top looks a little bit on the slight size. So with these guys, I actually upscaled mine. I think 105% for the lineman, and on an Asgard Rising base there, because that's the theme I'm going for my team. I like this. 105% scale for the Marauders puts them at a really nice size compared to the Chaos team. 100% is fine. I think they're a little on the slight side at 100%, but it's really nothing too noticeable. So you can see here, I have not cleaned these up brilliantly, so there's still a bit of supports. Yeah, this is what, 100% scale as well? Yeah, 100%, 105%, it doesn't really matter. The scaling on those is pretty good. Okay, actually, you know what? I believe that one I showed off was actually 100%. Was 110%. It is, yeah, here we go. So this is 100% scale of Marauder. This is a 100% scale Bloodseeker, and you can see that they are quite a bit smaller than the Games Workshop ones. They work all right with the Games Workshop linemen, but that Marauder we showed off was about 110% scale and puts them at a pretty nice kind of clip against the Games Workshop team. So we've looked at the Seekers, we've looked at the linemen. Let's have a look at the Khorne Gores. Oh, I'm getting static grass all over the place here. Okay, so the Khorne Gores have gone with a very dog style. We've already seen that from looking at the STLs. And the cool thing is, because they're kind of proportioned and they're positioned differently, that they line up really nicely against the Games Workshop ones. They are a bit more cartoony. The Games Workshop ones are pretty cartoony, to be fair, aren't they? So this is 100% scale and lines up pretty nicely. And if we grab a Khornate lineman, a Bloodborne Marauder, yeah, well done, Rick, using the transfers. They size up pretty well. So if you're happy with these sculpts, then actually you don't need to do anything with them. So from a scale point of view, the Bloodseekers 110%. The Marauders 105%. Same for the Khorne Dogs. Right, now, this set comes with 2 Bloodspawns, and I love the design aesthetic for this. It is just like, it's like Resident Evil, it's like Spawn, and I love it. I think it's really, really, really cool. So this is 100% with pre-supports. Let's use the classic test, the Games Workshop Ogre from the Dungeon Ball set. And it sizes up really well for 100% scale. I've not based this guy yet because I forgot to print off a 40mm base, and big guys deserve 40mm bases. However, you can see that this guy will fit nicely on a 32mm base. So sizes up brilliantly against an ogre, and if you put them next to a random Marauder, you can see he's got plenty of chunk to him, so it actually works out brilliantly. We've got the old size 4 test here, strength 4 test from one of the Buccaneers, and yeah, this guy is evidently bigger. I tell you what, as we've got this guy here, let's grab one of our 110% Seekers and compare it to, it's kind of the quintessential strength 4 test here, the Black Orc. The Games Workshop Seekers are pretty big. Actually, I like that. Okay, so I did all that, and then I kind of realized that I really liked these sculpts. They're really cool. They've got that kind of barbarian vibe to them. Although you can see the pre-supports cut a bit of the helmet off there, so definitely be careful of that. I like giants in Blood Bowl, and I'm looking to make a giant team. In fact, I've printed out a giant team using Artisan Guild dudes. I'm still painting them. So many projects, you know what it's like. So I thought, actually, these guys are very good. So I took one and I scaled him up 300%. So he is he is big compared to my iPhone. He's the same size. Basically, do I have a can? No, I don't have. I don't have the can test. What I can do though, is compare him to an ogre. So I have printed this guy at 300% scale. I did the supports myself because when you're scaling up pre-supported stuff, you got to be careful. When you're scaling with pre-supported stuff, you got to be really careful. So he's on a 70mm base, and I think I have found the team that I can use to print giants for. Now, David Priest did this at Beachhead, printed out one of the Punga Triton dwarf at a massive scale, and it was awesome. Now 300%, this is massive. This guy is absolutely massive, and if you compare him to a Bloodborne, like, he comes up to his ankles, and this is something that we don't do enough in Blood Bowl. We've got the opportunity, and the Mars 2 Pro had plenty of space to print this guy at 300%. Now, is he giant? He's maybe not as giant as he could be, but, you know, compared to a random strength 3 guy, like, plenty big enough. He's got all the base size you need. So I just couldn't resist having a go to print a little giant as part of this team. I know I should have been painting and doing other good things, but actually I've done a very quick paint job here. I apologize, it's not very good at all. It's not finished. I think I've just done the base colors and a bit of a dry brush and some washing, but I loved it. I thought it was a really cool way to show off the models and the versatility here, and a whole team of these guys would definitely get across the impression that this is a giant team. So, love the sculpts. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content, we get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.